They say some books are dangerous because of what they contain. This one is dangerous because of what it should not contain. A single book, almost a meter tall, heavy enough to break a table, written in one hand, one ink, one lifetime. And in the middle of it, a full-page image of the devil, staring straight out of the parchment, alone, unchallenged, uninterrupted. No other medieval manuscript dares to do that. No angels, no saints, no God, just the devil. This book is called the Codex Gigas, the Devil's Bible. According to legend, it was written in a single night by a condemned monk who made a deal with something that was never meant to listen. According to history, that should be impossible. And yet, the book exists, still intact, still silent, still unanswered. Tonight, we open the Devil's Bible, not to admire it, but to understand why it should never have been written at all. The Codex Gigas was not found. It survived. Created in the early 13th century, inside a remote Benedictine monastery in what is now the Czech Republic, this book immediately defies reason. It is not a collection of scrolls, not a compilation added over decades. It is a single manuscript, written by one person, in one consistent handwriting style, from the first page to the last. That alone is unsettling. The book contains over 300 parchment pages made from animal skin, likely from dozens of donkeys. Each page is massive, nearly half a meter tall. When closed, the book weighs more than 70 kilograms. Moving it requires 2 people. Writing it should have required a lifetime. Yet every page looks the same. No aging handwriting, no shaking fingers, no decline. Just perfect consistency, as if time never touched the writer. Inside the Codex Gigas is almost everything. The entire Latin Bible, medical texts, chronicles of history, spells, exorcisms, calendar of saints, instructions for healing the sick, instructions for casting out demons. And then suddenly, without warning, the devil. A full-page illustration, greenish skin, clawed hands raised as if trapped or presenting himself, a crown of red horns, no context, no explanation. On the opposite page, complete emptiness, no text, just blank parchment. Scholars noticed this detail centuries later. The devil occupies one page, and the space of God, the next page, is empty. That is not an accident. Medieval scribes were obsessed with symbolism. Nothing was placed randomly. Which leads to the first and most disturbing question. Who decided the devil deserved a full page? And why was he placed alone? The legend claims the answer is simple. The monk who wrote the book was condemned for breaking his vows. Punishment awaited him. Not death, but something worse. To be sealed alive inside the monastery walls, buried breathing, waiting for darkness to finish the work. In desperation, the monk promised to write a book in one night, a book that would glorify the monastery forever. As midnight approached, he realized the task was impossible. And so, according to legend, he prayed. But not to God. He prayed to the only being who could finish the work before dawn. And something answered. By morning, the book was complete, and the devil, satisfied, demanded his image be placed inside. Historians dismiss this as myth. They say it took decades to write. They say monks exaggerate stories. They say fear created the legend. But there is one problem. No historical record mentions any second scribe. No correction marks, no revisions, no change in ink formula, and no explanation for how one man could produce this volume without visible fatigue. The Codex Gigas does not prove a deal with the devil, but it refuses to prove the opposite. And that is where the fear begins. If the legend were only a story, the Codex Gigas would still be terrifying. Because when modern scientists examined the book, they expected to find mistakes. They expected to find corrections. They expected to find proof of human limits. They found none. The ink throughout the entire manuscript is chemically identical, not similar, identical. Made from the same mixture, used at the same concentration, over hundreds of pages, across what should have been decades of writing. Ink ages, ink changes, ink darkens, fades, cracks. This one does not. The handwriting tells the same story. Medieval scribes age quickly, hands stiffen, lines tremble, letters lose discipline. But the Codex Gigas shows no such decay. Page 1 and page 300 look as if they were written days apart, not years, not decades. There are no margin notes correcting theology, no scribal complaints, no prayers for tired hands, which is strange because monks often left those behind, tiny cries for mercy hidden between lines. This monk left nothing, as if he did not need to, as if exhaustion never touched him. Experts calculated the minimum time required to produce the Codex Gigas. Writing alone, without sleep, without meals, without error, it would take at least 20 years. And that calculation assumes perfection. No illness, no interruption, no human weakness. Yet the monastery records mention no such lifelong project. No allocation of resources, no special treatment. No note of a monk disappearing into isolation for decades. And then there is the content itself. The Codex Gigas does not just copy scripture. It organizes it with precision. It aligns medical knowledge with spiritual texts. It places exorcisms next to healing practices, as if the writer understood the thin line between sickness and possession, between body and soul, between science and fear. This was not the work of a copying hand. It was the work of a mind assembling something deliberate, something complete. And then there is the devil again. The illustration is not decorative, it is instructional. The posture, the claws, the exposed genitals symbolizing temptation, the absence of fire suggesting control rather than chaos. This is not the devil as monster. This is the devil as presence, contained, acknowledged, given space. Some scholars believe the image was a warning, others believe it was a tribute. But the placement says more than interpretation ever could. The devil stands alone. No narrative around him, no moral lesson attached, just existence. As if the book is saying, he is real, whether you approve or not. That is not medieval thinking. That is something colder, something closer to truth than comfort. If the Codex Gigas were only strange, it would be admired. Instead, it was feared. Because wherever the book went, disaster followed. The monastery that created it fell into ruin. War, plague, financial collapse. The monks sold the book, desperate, as if trying to rid themselves of a burden. It passed from hand to hand, each owner proud, each owner cursed. During the 30 Years' War, the book was taken by Swedish forces, looted, claimed as a prize. And soon after, fires ravaged Stockholm. Plagues spread, royal deaths followed. The Codex Gigas survived every catastrophe untouched, as if history burned around it, but never through it. Even when a massive fire destroyed much of the royal castle library, the book was reportedly thrown from a window to save it. The building burned. The book lived. Some believe the curse is not violent. It is patient. It does not strike the reader. It erodes the world around them. Institutions crumble. Certainty dissolves. Faith weakens. Because the Codex Gigas does not scream blasphemy. It whispers doubt. It places God, medicine, demons, and history on the same level. Ink to ink, page to page. No hierarchy, no comfort. That is far more dangerous than heresy. In medieval Europe, fear was controlled through structure. This book removes structure. It suggests knowledge itself is neutral, that salvation and damnation are written with the same hand, and that hand never trembled. Today, the Codex Gigas rests behind glass, guarded, catalogued, explained away. But no scholar has ever claimed to understand why it feels wrong to stand near it. Visitors report unease, a pressure, a sense of being watched. Rational minds dismiss this. Of course they do. Because the most frightening thing about the Devil's Bible is not the legend. It is the possibility that no supernatural explanation is needed at all. That one human being, in one place, at one moment, decided to create a book that treats good and evil as equals, and succeeded. If that is true, then the devil did not need to help. He only needed to be acknowledged. And that realization is far more unsettling than any demon ever could be. At some point, the question changes. Not who helped write the Codex Gigas, but what kind of mind could want to. Because the book does not read like desperation, it reads like control. The structure is deliberate, the order is intentional. This was not a monk racing against death. This was a mind mapping the world as it truly saw it. God first, then knowledge, then medicine, then demons, then history. All equal in ink, all bound together. Medieval monks did not think this way. They separated the sacred from the profane. They feared contamination. The Codex Gigas invites it. Some psychologists believe the writer suffered from extreme isolation. A mind cut off long enough begins to flatten meaning. Good and evil stop being opposites. They become data. When that happens, belief no longer comforts. It organizes. The devil's image reflects this perfectly. He is not attacking, not threatening, not seductive. He is present, contained, catalogued, as if the writer wanted to say, "I see you, and I am not afraid." That sentence alone would have been heresy. But the book does something worse. It proves the thought was stable. Page after page, the handwriting never fractures. No spiral, no collapse, no madness. This was not insanity. This was clarity without mercy. And clarity is dangerous. Because a mind that sees the world without moral distortion cannot be guided. It can only be obeyed or destroyed. The monastery chose neither. It preserved the book, and in doing so, preserved the thought behind it, locked between leather covers, waiting. Some scholars now believe the legend of the devil was created later, not to explain the book, but to contain it. Calling it cursed made people step back. Calling it satanic
made people afraid to copy it. The devil became a warning label, a story to protect the world from the idea inside. Because ideas do not burn. Buildings do. Bodies do. Books survive.
And this one survived too well. Today, the Codex Gigas is silent, behind glass, labeled, measured, explained. And yet no one ever closes the exhibit quickly. People linger. They do not know why. There is nothing moving, nothing glowing, no hidden mechanism, just a book. But the longer you stand there, the more the unease grows. Because the Codex Gigas does not threaten you. It mirrors you. It shows what happens when a human mind removes fear from belief. When God and devil are treated as equal forces. When morality becomes organization. The devil's Bible does not ask you to worship anything. It asks you to look. And looking is enough. That is why it was never banned, why it was never destroyed. Destroying it would admit it mattered. Instead, history chose something subtler. Containment, glass, distance, explanations. But books are patient. They do not need to move. They wait for the right reader. And every generation believes it is rational enough, strong enough, detached enough, until they stand in front of it and feel watched by ink. The legend says the devil helped write the Codex Gigas. History says a man did it alone. Both explanations are frightening. Because if the devil wrote it, then evil can create order. And if a man wrote it, then order does not require goodness at all. The book never answers which is true. It only asks whether you are comfortable not knowing. Most people are not. That is why, after the screen goes dark, the mind stays awake. Because somewhere, written in one hand, with one ink, in one unbroken will, a book exists that treats good and evil as equals. And it is still waiting.